Hello, my name is Kasey Lindley. Thank you for joining my artist talk about my current exhibition at the Finch Lane Gallery entitled Mother Landscape. I wanted to begin by thanking the Salt Lake City Arts Council for providing this wonderful opportunity, and Claire Taylor has been really wonderful to work with, and she's made the whole process really seamless, so thank you very much. To begin with, I would like to talk about my background. I grew up in Utah. My dad was an athlete mountain biker, avid skier. I have a lot of memories as a kid spending a lot of time in very remote places in Utah that weren't very well known. Camping, hiking, going to hot springs. Had a really cool childhood, and so a lot of my interest in landscape and environmental advocacy comes from those early experiences. My interest in the arts in general was initially inspired by my grandma. She was a landscape painter and was very active in the Provo art community. She basically introduced me to painting and kind of sparked that love for the arts and painting. I went to art school in Florida and in Connecticut and spent a lot of time in New York City as well, and getting familiar with the contemporary art world. Had some really incredible experiences that way as well. And so from those experiences, I gained more interest in multimedia approaches and installations. I became very interested in ecofeminism in graduate school. I was doing a lot of work that was centered around the celebration of the environment and also the degradation that has been taking place. I started to reference climate change, and at the time it was still coined as global warming. And so when I found ecofeminist theory, I felt like it was describing really well what I was trying to describe in my artworks. So in a nutshell, it basically explores the parallels between the treatment of the landscape and our environment and the treatment of women. And this stems from a patriarchal ideology and a patriarchal system. And, it creates a hierarchy where basically men, and white men in particular, are kind of at the top of this hierarchy, and women and nature are seen as wild and needing to be tamed, and there's more to it, but it would take a long time to explain it all. But that is what much of my work has been really inspired by. So I think what I would like to do now is start to go into detail about each of the pieces that are in the show. But I did also want to mention that my daughter plays a very integral part in the work as well. The experience of creating a human and the changes that your body goes through is really transformational. I like to involve my daughter in the pieces, so when you look at them, you'll see footprints and fingerprints, and she was very involved in the creation of these works. And also she contributed with paintbrushes and applying paint and things like that as well. So I like her to feel very included in the process, and I think that it contributes to the meaning of each piece as well. So I'd like to first talk about fallen paintings. Not only is it about referencing landscape, but it also is referencing aspects of the arts as well. So it's taking the painting from the 2D surface and liberating it from the wall, and it has a very organic flow to it. It is originally inspired by Linda Banglish. She created her own fallen paintings. Also a feminist artist. She's one of my big inspiration. Playing with different ways of creating a landscape painting. It's not a traditional, landscape format, but so that is a little bit of perspective on fallen paintings, and it's just really it's a fun piece. It's one of my favorites. Next, I will move on to Fiery Furnace. This is a place in Arches National Park that I spent a lot of time as a kid. My dad and his friends, when they were in high school, they would go to Arches and Moab and intentionally get lost. I don't suggest that anybody do this, but they would intentionally get lost and see who could like find their way back to their campsite first. It's a silly teenager thing to do, but anyway, because of doing this, he discovered a lot of places that a lot of really cool spots that not many people knew about. So again, I had some really cool experiences, and through those experiences I grew to really love and appreciate these landscapes. This piece is a celebration of that space, and it would hopefully encourage other people to really find these kind of places and just really find the value in these majestic landscapes, and want to preserve it and take care of it. All right, so moving on, next is landscape skins. These pieces were created by pouring acrylic paint over a plastic sheet and letting them dry overnight. I really love these pieces because I love the organic abstract shapes I was able to create out of them. It's harder to create these kind of shapes when you're cutting them out of canvas or paper, and these ones to me feel so natural, and I feel like they turned out really cool. If you look at them up close, you'll notice little cracks and crevices, and to me they are aerial landscapes. They are kind of plastic, referencing how landscapes are manicured by human activity and altered. But also they do reference skin. They look like human skin, and in that sense, I am talking about how humans are nature. They are part of nature. We're not separate from it. We are part of it. And when we pass away, our bodies decompose and become the landscape. So that's another part of what these pieces are about. Next, we have Wetlands. So growing up in Utah, I did not spend a lot of time near the Great Salt Lake and the wetlands that border the Great Salt Lake, because a lot of people would say you don't want to go in that area because it's stinky and there are a lot of brine flies, and so that was kind of like a place that you wouldn't go. But I moved back to Utah in 2018 for a period of time, and I was really curious about that landscape. I was curious about the Great Salt Lake. I was curious about Antelope Island and some of the other islands on the Great Salt Lake, including Stansbury Island. My daughter and I went on a hike there in the spring, and it was really cool. So I got to know the wetlands around the Great Salt Lake pretty well over about a year. And I find it incredibly fascinating. I love the birds that you can find there certain times of the year. It's a huge migratory destination for birds. I find the Great Salt Lake and the wetlands really magical and amazing. So I wanted to create this piece for that landscape in particular, and I would hope it would also influence more conservation efforts and want to protect it. When thinking about the inland port and plans for an inland port, I'm very opposed to it because it would devastate that fragile landscape. They would have to build on some of the wetlands, and it would devastate the bird populations, and also bring in more air pollution. So it was a piece created in response to that as well. The last two pieces I want to talk about are Womb and Big Bang. These pieces are in part inspired by the process of pregnancy and the transformation from non-motherhood to motherhood. A lot of the times in my work I will talk about the micro and the macro and kind of bring in aspects of the universe and our role as a species in the universe, and the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And so those pieces are touching on some of those ideas. And also there was a piece written by Mary Evelyn Tucker and Brian Swimmy in The Journey of the Universe. And I was really inspired by it. It said, "The stars are our ancestors. Out of them everything comes forth. For stars, creativity depends on maintaining a state of disequilibrium. It is the dynamic tension between gravity and fusion, outward expansion and contraction. Stars are wombs of immense creativity." So I thought that was really beautiful, and so these pieces were created in response to that as well. And I hope you go to see the pieces, and I hope you enjoy them, spend some time with them, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. My name is Kasey Lindley, and you can go to my website, KaseyLouLindley.org, and check out other pieces that I've created. And yeah, so thank you so much, and have a great day.